Today we're diving into why your willpower falters, how to increase your willpower, and also how to develop a robust sense of self-discipline so you never have to break that New Year's resolution again. My name is Dan Corcoran. I'm a coach who helps people develop self-discipline and build confidence. Thank you for being here. Now let's dive in. It's always helpful to be on the same page of what we're talking about. So let's look at the core definitions of some terms we'll be using today. As you can see on the screen, we have self-control, the capacity to override impulses and habitual responses in the pursuit of a long-term goal or delayed goal. Willpower, the ability to control one's own actions, emotions, or urges. Then we have self-discipline, the ability to follow through on what you intend to and refrain from what you have chosen to avoid. Now let's look at why we often fail and how to actually build a system that works for you. Now the problem is willpower is typically viewed as a self-control resource that with use, it gets drained. Now that doesn't mean some people don't have more willpower or you can't increase your willpower, but it's looked as a reservoir basically. With more use of your willpower on one challenge or task, you have less of it to use on the next. Easy example is resisting snacks all day, and then at night it becomes much harder than it otherwise would if you didn't have to resist snacks earlier in the day. And it can also be with different tasks too. If you just had a long day at work, very stressful, had to make all these decisions, resisting that dessert that you're typically able to on a more relaxing day now becomes much harder. This process of continually using your willpower then it draining is known as ego depletion, which was coined by the psychologist Roy Baumeister. And Baumeister ran an experiment on this where he tested participants' willpower. How he ran this is basically, he asked people to come in, participants to come in, all of them fasted for at least 2 hours, and in one of the groups he said, hey, here are some cookies and here are some radishes. Don't eat the cookies, eat the radishes. And the participants had to resist eating the cookies and instead eat the radishes. This is an example of exerting your self-control and taking from that reservoir of willpower. Now the other group could come in and eat the cookies. They didn't have to resist the temptation to eat the cookies while fasted. They could just come in and eat the cookies. Following this, both groups had to solve a tough puzzle. The group who had to resist their temptation and eat the radishes performed worse than the other group who could eat the cookies. There's other factors that go into this too, such as your mindset behind willpower and glucose, whether you have a little sugary drink in between experiments. But it has been documented and demonstrated that even if you have like a mindset of like, oh, I have so much willpower, I have more than the average person, or if you have glucose, like a little sugary drink, it still gets depleted over time. It just can be extenuated. I mention this because willpower is great. You should have a lot of willpower, but it's not a resource that can be solely relied upon. It's not a sustainable resource that can always be drawn upon continually. And the solution to this is one, let's increase our willpower, but two, design mechanisms where willpower doesn't have to be solely relied upon. So one of the key mechanisms here that you can develop so you don't have to solely rely on willpower is designing your environment, architecting your environment. For example, if you're on a diet and you don't want to eat certain foods, simply don't have those foods or foods of that sort in your apartment, in your house. Don't buy them. Additionally, if you're someone who wants to enter a block of deep focus, get your phone off the desk. Get your phone preferably in another room, in a locker, in a bag, zip it away. And this is self-discipline at work. Designing your life, designing your environment so you don't always have to fight impulses head on. So why can't we always just do this? Well, obviously the reality is we're not always the creator of our environments. We go into work, we travel, we see friends, etc. And this is where something like willpower comes more into play. So the person who's trying to do dry January could have a great home environment. They don't have any alcohol around. They're like, hey, I only want to drink on the weekends, etc. But they still want to see friends and they go out with friends. And those friends want to go to a bar. Then, how do you increase your willpower to still be able to resist the temptation of getting a drink? The good news is the evidence strongly suggests willpower can be increased and you can train it. Examples of this could be monitoring your eating habits, practicing good posture, physical exercise, delayed gratification. One thing I do personally is when I'm cooking a meal, I'm not always successful, but I try to never pick on it until it's fully served. And this is just a classic example of delayed gratification and self-control. Going back to the bar example, you can have great willpower and you are using your willpower, you're not having to drink during dry January, or if you just want to take a break from drinking, or you just don't want to drink at all, just altogether in life. One way to get over this hump, over this barrier, is by flipping the script in your mind of the cost benefit. Basically, your mind and your brain are always doing these cost benefit computations. You know, what's the value of something? How much effort do I have to do to get that? Is it worth it? Will it succeed? What's the value, etc. And you can kind of flip the script here, because if you see alcohol as, oh God, it's a social lubricant, it's so much fun, it's always going to help me do things, etc., that's pretty damn tempting. That, the value of that compared to the cost of effort to get it, it's probably very low, is phenomenal. It's great. So your brain's always like thinking like this is a good deal, basically. I'm willing to pay this. However, what happens if we flip the script there once more? What happens if you start to list out the cons? And not just cons like, it's not good for my health. I mean actual cons that you feel that are emotionally resonant. Cons like, hey, if I drink tonight, I have a really awful tomorrow morning. If I drink tonight, my mental clarity is hindered for the next 4 days. If I drink tonight, I won't be able to get coffee with that friend or that girl I want to see. So what we're doing here is we're magnifying the cost. We're increasing the cost. And this has worked tremendously for me. Stupidly well for me, if that's a good phrase to use. It has worked so well for me before in the past when I just want to stop drinking for a few months and focus on other things. I just simply magnify the cost. I go, this really isn't worth it actually, because it takes away from my productivity. It takes away from my mental clarity. It really does sabotage the next few days. And for someone who enjoys physical exercise, it completely undermines that too. I'm not saying you have to do this by any means, but what I am saying is if you're someone who wants to stop drinking or anything, or even like sticking to a diet, if you view the donut as so delicious, as great, it's gonna bring so much joy, whatever, then yeah, it's gonna be pretty damn difficult to resist. But what happens if you start viewing the donut as the cost of you achieving your goals, such as going to the beach? If you go, and I'm not just saying this to you, I've used this myself recently when it comes to, I was going on vacation and I worked in the office. The office always had food, pasta, pizza, donuts, pastries. And what I would do is I wouldn't just go, you can't have the donut. I rarely would say that. I would go, you don't want the donut. You don't want the pasta, because that is going to cost you what you really want, which is looking on the beach, looking on vacation. Same thing applies to drinking. So to get down to the brass tacks here, it's about reframing the cost benefit analysis in your brain, in your mind. Okay, let's recap here. First thing is ego depletion. It's a self-control resource that will eventually lapse if you continue to use it. However, there's a couple things we can do about that. One, we can design environments where we don't have to exert self-control to achieve our goals. But two, we don't always control our environment, so we can increase our willpower through delayed gratification, self-control exercises. Then there's three, we can also flip the script if we believe it. It has to be true. We really have to believe it. It has to be emotionally resonant. We can flip the script and go, this actually isn't worth it, whatever that thing is. I hope this was helpful to you, and if you got value from this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It means the world. This is a new channel, and I very much appreciate your support.